The office was cold and perfect. Shiny glass walls, smooth white floors, and a smell of expensive coffee filled the air. Everyone walked fast, spoke in short emails, and smiled only when they had to. It was 8:23 a.m. when she walked in. A woman, in a simple gray cleaning uniform. Her name tag said, Amira. No one noticed her at first. She didn't wear heels. She didn't carry a laptop. She didn't speak unless someone spoke to her first. She just walked slowly, holding a mop and a small cart of supplies. But one person did notice her. Mr. Clark, the floor manager. He wore a suit too tight for his belly and glasses too small for his eyes. He always held a tablet in his hand and acted like it made him smarter. He looked at Amira and raised his eyebrows. A new janitor, he asked loudly, making sure others heard. About time they sent someone who looks strong enough. The way he said it, people knew what he really meant. Amira was black, tall, quiet, older than most. She looked at him kindly and said nothing, just nodded. Amira moved through the office slowly. Her steps were soft. Her eyes noticed everything. Papers left on desks, coffee spilled in corners, workers whispering near printers. She didn't miss a thing. She began wiping the windows. That's when Mr. Clark walked over again. You don't need to do the windows. Stick to the trash bins, he said sharply. Amira looked at the glass and then at him. But the windows are dirty, she replied gently. Mr. Clark's eyes narrowed. Just do as I say. And don't go near the executive offices, especially not the CEO's. Amira nodded again slowly. But she didn't walk away. Instead, she asked, "Where is the CEO's office?" Clark stared at her like she had lost her mind. Top floor, corner office. Why? Amira smiled. No reason. And then she walked away, pushing her cart slowly toward the elevator. People started whispering. Did she just ask where the CEO's office is? Why is she going upstairs? Is she lost? The elevator dinged. Amira stepped in and pressed the top button. Is she crazy? Someone whispered behind her. She's going to get fired in her first hour. But Amira wasn't crazy. She was calm. Too calm. She rode the elevator alone, standing tall. The cart beside her held only cleaning supplies, but her eyes looked like they carried something heavier. Something hidden. At the top floor, a young assistant saw her come out of the elevator. Excuse me, you're not allowed. Amira raised one hand. I just need to wipe the windows, she said simply. The assistant froze. Something in her voice was powerful. Not loud, not angry, just strong. The CEO's office door stood at the end of the hallway. Without knocking, Amira walked straight to it and opened it. Downstairs, Mr. Clark was laughing. She's finished, he told the receptionist. Barging into the CEO's office, she'll be out before lunch. But 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Amira didn't come down. No one called security. No one screamed. The receptionist looked at Clark. Maybe you should check. Clark got up, annoyed, and headed for the elevator. When he reached the top floor, he rushed down the hall and pushed the door open. What he saw stopped him cold. Amira was sitting calmly in front of the CEO's desk. The CEO, a tall, quiet man in his 60s, sat back in his chair, listening carefully. They were drinking tea. Clark blinked. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know she. The CEO held up a hand. It's all right, Clark, he said calmly. We were just talking. Clark stammered. But she's the janitor. The CEO nodded. Yes, and you should listen to her. You might learn something. Clark turned red. Amira stood, gave the CEO a small bow, and walked past Clark like he wasn't even there. Back in the elevator, alone again, Amira looked at her reflection in the silver walls. She whispered to herself, 7 minutes. That's all it took. And smiled. Mr. Clark was angry. very angry. He stood in the hallway watching the elevator door close behind Amira. His hands were shaking. His face was red. His jaw tight. How could a janitor walk into the CEO's office and come out smiling? Something wasn't right. And worse, the CEO had defended her. "You should listen to her," he had said. Those words echoed in Clark's head like a slap. Back on the main floor, Clark stormed through the office. "She's just a cleaner." He snapped at no one in particular. But deep inside, he felt something else. Fear. Fear that his power was slipping. Clark had spent years building control. He chose who got interviews. He decided who got hired. He even made some people cry, just for fun. He smiled when people feared him. But Amira wasn't afraid, not even a little, and that scared him. Later that day, Amira returned to her cleaning. She didn't act like someone who had just shaken up the company. She moved quietly through the rows of desks, wiping, dusting, noticing everything. And Clark was watching her. From the glass wall of his office, he kept an eye on her every move. He saw how people started greeting her, not like a cleaner, but like someone important. She smiled softly at them. Her presence made the space feel different. And that made Clark boil. That afternoon, Clark called a private meeting with his assistant, Tim. "Keep an eye on the janitor," he said coldly. "Amira." "Yes, her," Clark hissed. "I don't trust her. There's something fake about her. Who walks into the CEO's office their first day? Who gets invited for tea?" Tim blinked. "Sir, maybe she just..." Clark slammed the desk. "No maybe. I want to know where she came from, who hired her, and what her game is." Tim nodded, nervous. But while Clark played detective, Amira was already one step ahead. In a small notebook in her pocket, she quietly wrote down things she saw. Paperwork being thrown in the trash before being signed. Expensive company chairs being ordered and sent to Clark's home. Meetings where new employees of color left looking small and broken. Amira said nothing. She just observed. She listened. She wrote. 2 days later, something strange happened. Amira entered the break room to clean and saw Clark laughing with 2 junior employees. He looked at her, grinned, and said loudly, "Careful, boys. Don't leave your wallets near the janitor." The boys laughed nervously. Amira froze, but only for a moment. She walked over, calmly picked up a crumpled paper on the floor, and threw it in her cart. Then she looked Clark straight in the eyes. "You should be careful, Mr. Clark," she said softly. "Words live longer than people." And she walked away. By the end of the week, whispers had started. "Have you noticed how Mr. Clark treats her? Why is he always watching Amira? She's just doing her job, and he's always on her case." And still, Amira said nothing, but her notebook kept filling. One afternoon, while wiping the windows near the conference room, Amira heard voices. Clark was inside with Tim. "I want her gone," Clark growled. "She's playing some long game." "I know it." Tim hesitated. "But she hasn't broken any rules." "I don't care. I'll find something. Anything." Amira quietly stepped away. She didn't need to hear more. Because now she knew. Clark wasn't just arrogant. He was hiding something. That night, Amira stayed late. Everyone else had gone home. She walked through the empty office, slowly, looking at things most people ignored. And then she found it. In a storage room marked "Supplies Only," there were unopened boxes stacked in the corner. She opened one. Inside were tablets, headphones, chargers, company electronics. But the logbook on the wall said these were delivered to staff. They weren't. They were hidden. Amira pulled out her notebook and added one more line. "Clark is stealing from the company." The next morning, Clark came in smiling. Amira was already in the hallway, polishing the floor. "Still here," he mocked. "I thought the CEO would make you a VP by now." Amira looked at him and smiled gently. "Good morning, Mr. Clark." He sneered, but inside, his stomach turned. Because behind that smile, he felt something coming. Something big. The next morning started like any other. Busy footsteps, coffee cups clinking, keyboards tapping. But something felt different. Amira had just finished wiping the glass near the elevator when the golden doors slid open. Inside stood a young woman. Sharp black suit, long brown hair, confident eyes. Everyone turned. Whispers followed her as she walked in. "Is that?" "Yes, that's the CEO's daughter. She never comes here." But there she was. Eva Monroe, the daughter of the man who built the company. Eva walked straight past the staring employees, straight to the elevator again, but not before glancing once, quietly, at Amira. No one noticed it, but Amira gave a small nod, and Eva gave one back. A silent message passed between them. Clark, sitting in his office, saw it through the glass wall. His eyes narrowed. What was that? He whispered to himself. He stood quickly and followed. The elevator doors opened again. Amira stepped in, just as they began to close. But a hand stopped them. Clark. He slid inside with her, the doors shutting silently behind them. Now it was just the two of them. A tense, quiet ride. Clark looked at her through the mirror-like walls. "What are you really doing here?" he asked. Amira looked straight ahead. "My job." Clark smirked. "Don't play innocent. You think you're clever, sneaking around, asking questions, writing in your little notebook." Amira turned to him, her voice calm and steady. "You're scared," he scoffed. "Of a janitor." She leaned slightly forward. "Not of me. Of the truth." The elevator dinged. Top floor. When the doors opened, Eva was standing there, waiting. Clark stepped out first, pretending to smile. "Ms. Monroe," he greeted quickly. "We didn't expect you today." Eva didn't shake his hand. She didn't even look at him. Instead, she looked at Amira and smiled. "Right on time," she said warmly. Clark's smile faded. "You know her?" Eva turned slowly to him. "Yes, I asked her to come here." Clark blinked. "What do you mean?" Eva looked him in the eye. "She's not just a cleaner. She's part of my father's internal team. She's been watching, listening, reporting." Silence. Clark's face drained of color. Do what?" "That's not possible. She's been cleaning floors." Eva took a step closer, and in doing so, she saw everything, heard everything, including what you've been stealing. Clark froze. "This is insane. I've done nothing wrong." But Amira calmly pulled out her small notebook. She handed it to Eva. Page after page, times, dates, names, photos, small notes. Details about stolen company equipment. Records of discrimination. Conversations overheard. Receipts. Even a delivery signed by Clark for chairs that never reached the office. Eva flipped through the pages without saying a word. Then she looked at Clark. "You fired people for speaking up, bullied them into silence, and you thought no one would find out." Clark stepped back. Wait. Let's talk about this. I can explain." But just then, the CEO stepped out of his office. White hair, tall frame, kind but serious eyes. He looked at his daughter, then at Amira, then finally at Clark. "I trusted you," the CEO said softly. Clark opened his mouth, but no words came. Eva looked at the guards behind the hallway. "Escort him out. Right now." The guards moved forward. "No," Clark shouted. "You can't do this. I'm the manager." But no one listened. The man who once shouted orders was now shouting pleas. As the elevator doors closed behind him, the office fell quiet. Later, Amira stood by the window, watching the city below. Eva walked over. "Thank you," she said. Amira nodded. He had too much power. For too long. Eva smiled. My father says we need people who see everything. People who walk quietly. People like you. Amira looked down at her gray uniform. This suit helped me stay invisible. That's how I learned the truth. Eva placed a hand on her shoulder. You won't need that suit much longer. Downstairs, the office was buzzing. Did you hear what happened to Clark? They say the janitor wasn't even a janitor. She brought down the manager in less than a week. But Amira stayed silent. She just kept working, quietly, calmly, like she always had. But in her eyes was a new light, and behind her soft smile was a story no one would ever forget. Even after Clark was taken away, the office didn't return to normal. Something hung in the air, like a storm had passed, but clouds were still there. Some employees whispered in corners. Others acted extra polite around Amira, unsure how to speak to her now. But Amira stayed the same. She still came in early, still cleaned every corner with care, still wore her gray janitor's uniform. But now, people saw her differently. Some looked at her with respect, some with curiosity, a few with fear. But no one dared mock her anymore. That evening, long after the office lights had dimmed, Amira stayed behind. She walked alone through the quiet halls with her cleaning cart. But she wasn't just cleaning. She was investigating. Clark was gone, yes, but the damage he caused was still hidden. And Amira knew he didn't act alone. There were others. She just didn't know who. Yet, in the corner office near the break room, Amira noticed something odd. A trash bin, half full, but the paper at the top looked freshly torn. She pulled it out. A printed email, ripped in 3 parts. She laid the pieces on a nearby desk and slowly connected them like a puzzle. The email was from Clark, sent to someone named Mr. Jacobs. Make sure the bonus forms are shredded before Monday. We don't want HR catching our little adjustments. Her hands froze. Mr. Jacobs. He was the new assistant finance officer. He had just been promoted 2 months ago. Young, friendly, quiet. Amira thought he was harmless. But this email said something else. She kept digging. From the trash bin, she found more. Paperwork with numbers that didn't match. 2 sets of totals, one with higher figures, and one that was submitted officially. Someone was stealing employee bonuses. And it wasn't just Clark. It was bigger. Much bigger. Amira looked at the office clock. It was past 10 p.m. She took photos of every page, logged every detail in her notebook, and quietly rolled her cart back to the supply closet. But she didn't leave. Not yet. She knew what to do. She had to find the shredder. Clark's old office still hadn't been locked. She stepped inside, her shoes making no sound on the carpet. On the far side of the room was a heavy shredder, sitting under a side desk. It looked normal, but the bin was full. She opened it, and her breath caught. Inside were dozens of shredded papers, all cut into thin white strips. But not all of them were destroyed. A few pages were only half shredded. She pulled them out. Employee bonus lists. Names crossed out. Marked for delay. Promote later. Doesn't fit image. Too vocal. Slow their progress. Each note was in Clark's handwriting, and the initials MG appeared in the corners. Mr. Jacobs again. Amira stared at the pile, heart pounding. They were targeting people based on appearance, voice, background, racism, discrimination, theft. It was all here. Buried in a trash bin. She gathered what she could, stuffed the half-shredded documents into an envelope, and sealed it. But just as she turned to leave, the door creaked. Someone was outside. Amira moved fast, flipping off the lights and hiding behind the cabinet. The door opened slowly. Footsteps entered. She held her breath. Through the small crack in the cabinet, she saw him. Mr. Jacobs. He was holding a flashlight, looking around nervously. He went straight to the shredder, opened it, and paused. It was empty. His eyes narrowed. "Where is it?" he muttered. He turned around and scanned the room, confused. After a moment, he sighed and walked out. The door clicked shut. Amira waited 5 minutes before moving. She had what she needed. Now it was time to act. The next morning, Eva Monroe walked into her office to find an envelope on her desk. Inside were the photos, the emails, the bonus lists, and a short handwritten note. Clark wasn't alone. There are more truths in the trash. By noon, security was in the finance department. By 3 p.m., Mr. Jacobs was gone. And by evening, every employee whose bonus had been held or stolen received full pay with interest. The staff gathered in the break room later that day. For the first time in a long time, they were smiling. Some even cried. Eva walked in and made an announcement. This company was never meant to be a place of fear. Today, thanks to someone brave, we begin again. Everyone clapped, and all eyes turned to Amira. She just stood quietly in the back, smiling softly. She didn't want credit. She just wanted the truth to breathe. That night, as she left the building, she looked up at the shining company logo on the wall. So much had changed, and still more was coming. Because Amira wasn't finished. Not yet. The building was quieter now. Not because people were scared, but because something had changed. Respect had returned. Fear had left. And whispers had become open conversations. All because of one woman with a mop and a notebook. Amira sat alone in the break room. The little brown notebook rested in her hands. It looked old, worn, pages bent, corners faded. But inside was power. Every name, every moment, every unfair act she had seen and heard was written there, carefully, clearly. Not for revenge, for truth. 3 months ago, Eva Monroe had asked her father, the CEO, a question. How do you find out what really goes on in your company? He replied with a soft smile. You send someone invisible, someone who listens, someone who cares more about people than power. That someone was Amira. Back in the break room, Amira flipped to a page from her first week. She had written down a name, Lena. Lena was a quiet woman in it. Kind, brilliant, always early. But 3 months ago, she disappeared. Fired. No one knew why. One day she was there. The next, gone. People said Clark had something to do with it. Amira had never forgotten. Now, with the notebook in hand, she had something better than memory. She had evidence. She knocked on Eva's door that afternoon. Come in, Eva said warmly. Amira stepped in and placed the notebook on the desk. What's this? Eva asked. Everything, Amira replied. Eva opened it and slowly turned the pages. Each one shocked her more than the last. Pages on Clark's bullying. Notes about Jacobs and stolen bonuses. A line about how certain women weren't allowed to lead meetings. A memo that someone's resume was thrown away because their names sounded foreign. Eva's eyes filled with emotion. How did you gather all this? She asked. Amira answered simply. I listened, and no one noticed I was there. Eva flipped to a dog-eared page. It had a red dot in the corner. Lena Thomas, fired 6 weeks ago. Reason on paper, policy violation. Truth, overheard. Clark said she talked too much in meetings and made some people uncomfortable. She had just suggested hiring more women engineers. Eva closed the book slowly. This isn't just a notebook, she said. It's a mirror. She looked at Amira. You didn't just clean our floors. You cleaned our truth. That evening, Eva called her father, the CEO. He listened to every word. When she finished, there was silence. Then he said, Give that woman a chair at the table. The next morning, Amira came to work like always. Same cart, same uniform, same quiet steps. But this time, Something was different. At the entrance, a man from HR waited for her. He handed her a sealed envelope. Inside was a letter. You are formally invited to join the Leadership Ethics Committee. Your voice matters here. Below it were Eva's initials, and her father's. Amira smiled. But she didn't go to the top floor yet. She had one stop to make first. She found Lena. Not at the office. Lena was working at a small tech store downtown. When Lena saw her, her eyes widened. Amira? I never forgot, Amira said, handing her a copy of the page from the notebook. Lena's hands shook. No one believed me, she whispered. I did, Amira replied softly. Now the right people do too. Lena stared at the paper. Tears filled her eyes. And then, for the first time in months, she smiled. Back at the company, a new boardroom was being prepared. No suits, no ego. Just people, real people, gathering to listen, speak, and protect. Amira walked in. No cart, no mop, no gray uniform. Just her, and the notebook. She placed it on the center of the table. Everyone looked at her. She didn't speak much. She didn't need to. Her notebook had already spoken louder than anyone ever had. That day, the company began a new chapter, one where truth mattered more than title. And a notebook, a simple, quiet notebook, became the symbol of everything they almost lost. All because one woman dared to write down what others ignored. The notebook had changed everything inside the company. But outside, no one knew. Not yet. The public still saw the company as clean and perfect, profitable, powerful, but not broken. That was about to change. It began with a phone call. A journalist named Maya Dean worked for a well-known online news site. She had been following whispers, online reviews, ex-employee comments, even an anonymous tip. The name Amira kept coming up. She searched deeper. What she found shocked her. She requested a meeting with Eva Monroe. At first, Eva hesitated. The company had just started healing. But Amira said quietly, "Let them see. Let the world know the truth, so others won't be silent." Eva agreed. 2 days later, Maya arrived. She was sharp, polite, and professional. She carried a voice recorder and a notepad. Amira sat across from her, calm and ready. "Tell me everything," Maya said. And Amira did. Not to shame the company, not to get fame, but to tell the truth. She spoke about the mop, the insults, the fake smiles, the stolen bonuses, the shredder, the whispers, the notebook. She shared every detail. She even gave Maya copies of the pages, with names hidden for legal reasons. Maya listened, carefully, quietly. By the end, she was holding back tears. The article dropped 3 days later. The headline read, "The Janitor Who Cleaned Up a Corporation's Dirty Secrets." Under it, a powerful quote from Amira. "They tried to make me invisible. But the truth sees everything." Within hours, the story exploded. Online, on the news, on social media. People weren't just reading. They were feeling. Former employees came forward. "I was one of them," wrote a woman named Kara. "I was fired for speaking up." "I always thought Clark was untouchable," said another. "I'm glad someone proved me wrong." The comments kept pouring in. The story wasn't just about one company. It was about every place where people were ignored, silenced, or stepped on. News vans lined up outside the office the next day. Cameras, microphones, flashing lights. But inside, silence. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. Would the company hide? Would it deny? No. They chose truth. Eva held a press conference. Her father stood beside her. Amira stood on the other side, no longer a janitor, but now a senior advisor for workplace integrity. Eva spoke first. "We failed," she said. "We let people like Clark rise, while good people were pushed down. Then her father stepped forward. I built this company with pride, but I forgot that pride without humility becomes blindness. My daughter and Amira opened my eyes. He paused and looked at Amira. Thank you for seeing what we couldn't. The room went quiet. Then someone clapped. Then everyone did. That night, Amira went home and turned on the TV. She saw her face on the screen, not as a victim, not as a janitor, but as a hero. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Texts, emails, messages from strangers. You inspired me. I want to speak up now. Thank you for your courage. Can I share my story with you? She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. It wasn't about fame. It was about hope. The next morning, a letter arrived at her door. No name on the front. Inside was a single sentence, written in shaky handwriting. You gave me the strength to apply for the job again. I believe in myself now. LT. LT. Lena Thomas. She had applied again. Because of her, Amira smiled softly. Sometimes one quiet voice could change thousands. Back at the company, things didn't go back to normal. They built something better than normal. A new department was opened. Employee Justice and Equity. Amira helped build it. People could now report wrongs safely. Meetings had new rules. No one could be ignored. And every new hire went through empathy training, written by Amira herself. But not everyone liked the changes. Some still whispered. Some left. That was okay, because the company wasn't afraid anymore. And Amira, she wasn't silent anymore. That evening, she stood by the glass window of the building she used to clean. She looked out at the city lights. So much had changed, but one thing never did. She never stopped believing the smallest person could shake the tallest walls. 7 minutes. That's how long it took for the old manager to insult her. 7 minutes. That's how long it took for Eva Monroe to fire him. 7 minutes. That's how long it took for the world to change, because one woman showed up in a janitor's uniform and refused to be silent. It had been 6 months since Amira stepped into the company's lobby with a mop and a plan. Now she stood in that same lobby, but everything was different. There were no stares, no smirks, no whispers, only respect. The company's mission wall had changed too. Where once there were empty words like efficiency and growth, now there was a single quote, engraved in gold. Truth has no rank. Dignity wears no uniform. Amira. That day, the company held a celebration. Not for profits, not for stock numbers, but for people. Employees from every floor gathered. No hierarchy, no private lounges, just chairs in circles and open hearts. Eva took the mic first. She looked around the crowd and smiled. Some people say 7 minutes isn't enough to make a difference. They're wrong, because 7 minutes showed me who I really wanted to be. Then she paused and nodded toward Amira, and who I wanted to follow. Amira stood up, slowly, quietly. She didn't like speeches, but today wasn't about comfort. It was about courage. She took the mic, looked around, and spoke the same way she always did, soft, calm, and true. I came here with a mop, not a message. I didn't know I'd be part of something bigger. I just knew right from wrong. People listened. Every word was like a heartbeat. I saw people afraid to speak. I saw unfairness treated like policy, but I also saw kindness. I saw workers lifting each other when no one was looking. So I wrote it down, page by page, because silence helps no one. And stories, they save us. There was silence, then a standing ovation. But Amira simply stepped down, humble as always. She didn't need applause. She had already won. Later that evening, Eva handed Amira something special. A brown box, tied with a simple string. Inside was her notebook, now preserved inside a clear case. Not just any case, it would be placed in the company Hall of Honor. right beside the founder's first design sketch. Eva said, "This book rebuilt more than our rules. It rebuilt our soul." Amira touched the case gently. "It's not mine anymore," she said. "It belongs to every voice that was ignored." As the event ended, something unexpected happened. A young girl, maybe 11 or 12, walked up to Amira with her mother. She held a copy of the news article printed out and folded. Her eyes were bright. "Are you the janitor who became the boss?" she asked. Amira chuckled softly. "Something like that." The girl looked up and said, "I want to be like you." Amira bent down and replied, "Then be brave when no one is watching." That's where it begins. Outside, the sun had set, but inside, light filled the building. It came from people, from truth, from change. And in that moment, Amira thought about that first day, the elevator, the mop, the insult, the stare. It had hurt, but she had not broken. She had risen. Not everyone who makes history wears a crown. Some carry mops, some carry notebooks, some carry scars, but all of them carry truth. And truth, it never needs permission. It walks in, quiet but strong, and in just 7 minutes, it can begin a revolution.